answer panel on the WebEx, or wait until the end, and we will take questions and answers at the end, but we'd appreciate it if you'd wait until the end of the session to ask your questions so we can get through what we need to do. The first one that I'm going to talk about is in our e-newsletters now, you have the ability to actually track where people click in the system, and then you will be able to see where they've been and set an affiliation code for where they click through to see where it is. It's fairly simple to set up. Once you've started building your e-newsletter, when you go to the content section, you can determine where you want to put the link in the system, in the e-newsletter, and you can highlight text, go up to the links, insert links, edit, and then you can take a URL, any one you want. I actually, during our pandemic crisis, I looked up the governor of Virginia's stay-at-home order, executive order, and found the link for that. And you can put it in, and then you can type and say, okay. And then you'll notice that there's now a link here. You would do your audience the way you would normally pick the audience for how you would set up an e-newsletter to do it. And then when you get to the review section, you'll see the show click-throughs. You can put a plus there, and then you can determine what affiliation code that you would like to put in it, just to associate it with it. And then when you say save and send it out, every time a person clicks on the link in the e-newsletter, it will add the affiliation code you've chosen into the contact record of the person who's received an e-newsletter and clicked through. The nice part about this is that it allows you to understand where people are going in your newsletter, as well as to know what their interests are. So in the future, if you want to reach out to them based on issues that they've clicked through and gotten more information on, you have the affiliation code where you can build the audience based on those affiliation codes to send out updates, other things like that, based on how you do it. So that's just an easy way to sort of tag people with special interests and things that you would want to know to do it. The next one is I'm going into services. Generally, in a service record, only the people who are assigned the service record or who are a manager of the template overall are able to reassign those service records to another person, another user within the Office or within the IQ application. Sometimes it's necessary, based on steps that you're in the service record, to have someone be able to reassign a record that doesn't belong to them to another user. If someone's out on vacation, out unexpectedly, sometimes service records get hung up because the person who's they're assigned to isn't available to move them through, and you want to allow them to be reassigned. But you don't necessarily want that person to have the ability to reassign it at any step in the service record or at any time. So we've now set up a new functionality, which is in the actual service template that you have to set it up in itself. And when you go to steps, you can pick the step where you want to allow someone to reassign to do it. And then here, other users and groups that can reassign, you can set up for each step of the service record who has the ability to reassign it and who doesn't. So it just gives a little more flexibility within the system to allow people to reassign service records that they don't own. Again, generally, it's only the person it's assigned to can reassign it, or the owner manager of the template overall. And again, you might not want this person to be a manager of the entire process, but you want them to be able to manage their individual process within their steps and how they're doing things. So that's just a nice feature that's available that we've set up now to allow a little more flexibility in how you can handle it. The other nice thing that we've done, and this is just, I think, sort of an enhancement to do it that makes things easier also. In the reassign functionality, when you click to reassign, and this has been something that we've had for a little while, but you have predictive typing. So if you start typing something in this, you get a certain amount of options to do it based on, I typed LEGE, and you get legislative assistance, legislative correspondence group. As probably most of you know in the system, when you set up a code similar to a group, a service code, there's always an ID and a translation. The ID is a shorter abbreviation for the actual name of the group to do it, because sometimes groups' names are too long and we only allow you to have a 20-character limit in an ID. So before, we didn't have the ability to search by code, or say I get the legislative assistance if I just type LA, or if I type LEG, I get it. Before, you would only get it if you were typing the actual code, not the translation to do it. So if you were using something where an acronym was the ID and the full name was the translation, you wouldn't be able to use one or the other to get the reassign alert. So this is just a nice way. It makes it somewhat easier to find the groups that you're looking for to be able to do it, use it that way to do it. So that's, again, a nice feature that I think to do. This next one, I think, is one that's very important and is going to be very useful to lots of groups. Most of your offices have web forms where you take submissions from constituents or citizens into the IQ database to handle those requests or those activities. A lot of times you have multiple web forms. One would say be for taking in what I refer to as opinion mail, where they're writing in about an issue and you have a message record, you have a form letter, you send it back to them saying what the position of the office is for whatever issue that they've written in about or submitted the form about. Other ones, people have issues with state agencies or city agencies, county agencies, something where you need it, or federal agencies where you need a third party involvement in it. Somewhat like if someone writes to a state and about their taxes, generally the office won't handle the tax response themselves. They'll send it to the State Department of Taxation to do it. So those are two different kinds of assistance. Sometimes the constituents and citizens don't really know what they're asking for and will submit using the wrong web form. So you might get a service that's actually an opinion piece, and so you only want the message record. You don't want the service record to handle it, because you want to send the form letter out and keep it tagged as a message, not as a service. Or another example is if you have multiple web forms and one's a proclamation, one state help with a state agency, things like that, people might choose the wrong one. We've now made it easy, if the person chooses the wrong activity, that you can switch around within the system to allow it to move it around and make it easier. So if it comes in, you look at it and it's a service record, and you know it's actually just an opinion mail piece, and you want to switch it to be a message record, you just click, choose the service record you want. You go to the more, and then you have convert to original message, and you click that, and you say convert to message, and it will have converted that service record into a message record so that you can then respond using a standard form letter to it. And you have the information that was submitted on the form still down here in the incoming attachment, but you can change it so that it's just a message record. The other one that's nice is, again, if they choose the wrong template that they've submitted in and you want to switch it to the correct template, you again go to more, switch template. Oops, sorry, I did this earlier and it worked perfectly, so let's try it again. I'm not sure, sorry, I apologize. I'm not sure what's causing that. I practiced this a lot this morning to do it. But it will allow you, let me try another one, just 1 second. That's my, if this one's working. It allows you to choose the template that you want to change it to. I have a whole lot in here, but if you pick one, you can then choose the template that you want and switch template, and it'll let you switch it, and you'll now see that this went from test template functionality to the OVS response one. So it does allow you to switch templates, and this makes it easier so you don't have information in the wrong template, or if you need just a message, it allows you to do both of those. So I think those are both very useful ones, and I've had requests at times for this functionality, so it's nice that we've finally gotten it through to do it. Another one that we have that I think is a nice functionality in it is you can now create a link within a user-defined field within a service record. So if you open up a service record and you want to be able to have a link in the service record, either to an outside website so that you can get information from the outside website, or you want it to be something that's internal into IQ, and we'll discuss both of those, you can hit save now, and that URL, it's become a link, and I can click on it, and it'll open it up in a separate tab for you to allow you to access it. You're still in your service record, so if you need information, say, from that website to complete the function of the service record, what it's designed, the business process it's designed for, you can have the link to it, and it's there. You can also link to something within IQ as well. In one example, you might have a set of guidance for how to handle a specific service record, and you have a document in IQ that shows the process to do it. So again, I can save that as a link, and this is the link to a record within this account of IQ that I have. And when I click on it again, it will open it up and show you the information that's within it so that you could access it. Again, it just gives you a little flexibility in what you need. So if you have, again, one of the things that I think might be useful of how to do this, if you have a how-to or user guide for a specific business process and you want to have a link to that business process how-to guide, you can do a link within the service itself, and that allows you to have access to it and not have to be outside of IQ to be able to access it. The next one, again, is a functionality that I've been asked about a lot, and we have a number of agencies particularly who are interested in this, and this is allowing you to set up a location field within your service record. Again, the location one has to be set up within the service template to set the field as a location field to do it, because once you put an address in the service record, it will then convert it to latitude and longitude and allow it to be mapped. So if I go in the location field, and hit enter, this is going to convert this to a mapping location, and it will show you on the map where the location is that's stored in the service record. The nice thing about this is once you have service records with the mapping location in them, you can then create a map, a heat map, to show you where all the services related to and the locations are. One of the things that I've thought about in working with different customers on this is that you can if you have, say, if you're a city agency or a county agency and you're having to repair multiple potholes, you could filter down, find all your pothole service records, and then create a location map, which you could then provide to the Department of Public Works to do the fix the potholes. Or another one that came up and that I think is, again, useful is one of our customers provides lawn services to the elderly. And again, if you needed to figure out who all needed to have their grass cut and how close they were to be efficient in having it done, you could use this facility. And you'll notice that each of the locations is mapped out on the map. And if you hover over it, it'll show you, and then you can be taken actually to the service that's related to the one that you were hovering over. So again, I think this is just a really nice way to do the to find out where things are that you're dealing with and drill down on them as a easier way to do it. Another one, this we're moving on from services to library. Again, this is one that I think is a really nice feature, especially having to do with what we call in our terminology campaign mail or hot issues that are new to the system, because what it allows you to do is if you need to make changes to your form letter and you already have a bunch of message records that have come in, you've assigned a form letter to them, they're in a batch, but you haven't sent them out yet. They're on the status called on hold in the system because they're ready to go, but you don't want to send them yet. And you realize you have to make a change to the letter that's associated with those message records. You can then come in to the form letter, find it to do it. You can edit content to the form letter, make any changes you want. I can't type today. And then hit save. And when you move it from draft, because it went to draft when you were editing it, when you move it to approved, you're going to get a pop-up box that says update all on hold messages with this letter to approve. So that way you can switch to having all those on hold messages to being approved. Now that you fixed the form letter, you can then just go to the batch and select them all and send them all out without having to add a new form letter to them and make the extra clicks to get that. So again, it's just a much more efficient way of handling bulk mail and areas like that to do it. So it's, again, a nice feature that just saves a little time and effort to do it. The next one is that we have created, and I don't know, I'll do it, start with the library so you can see it. We have the ability to create what we call fill-ins in a form letter in the system. So if 90% of the message in the form letter is the same, but you want to be able to add a little information to each of them as you send them out to make them more personal, or just add a little bit as needed to each one, you can create what we call a paragraph fill-in in the system, and it allows you to fill in something. And to do it, you have mail.fillin.merge, which is the code that you use to do it. Then you have the fill-in reference, and I picked an HTML paragraph to do it, and I'll explain what the HTML paragraph does. So it allows you to do a paragraph in it. So I could come to a contact record, add a form letter, form message, sorry, to do it. Choose my letter. Now I have a paragraph where I can add the information I want. When I click into the paragraph, you'll now see that I have an HTML editor that allows me to edit the information in the paragraph. So this way, I don't have to worry about adding it and then customizing it below. So I can type that. I can bold it, italicize it, change the font color, and say save. And it's added to the letter so that you can see the information there, and then you can send it. It's just a nice way, again, so you don't have to do as many clicks to get a formatted letter to send out if you're adding personalized information to a form letter to do it. The next two that are I'm going to show you are more, one is just more background activity. We've increased the efficiency and the speed in which you can analyze and filter on certain service records to do it. It's not really new functionality. It's just we've sped up the back end. In the Smithsonian service template that I used it as a demo for them, they have a list of museums that is very, very long to do it. So they have about 25, 30 museums. And so when I pick a museum and save it, and then I want to come back out and filter through all of the service records that I have to do it based on the museum, we've done some background processing that makes it quicker in displaying this and showing all of the ones that are available so it doesn't take as long. Also, if you're doing the analysis part, to analyze, advanced analyze, add a layer to the formatting and using the museum to do it, and update. It's just quicker. We've helped in the background to make this much more efficient and quicker. So I don't know that it's something that you really need to learn about. It's just there to do it. The last thing I'm going to show you before I turn you over to William, and I can't say that I'm going to show it to you as much other than show where the setting is in admin and discuss it to do it. There is the ability to, we used to have, if you had, sorry, I always get a little tongue-tied when explaining this one to you. In the system, there's the ability to create a inbox that say is IMA inbox. So all of your email that comes from a web form or outside can be added to that inbox. You don't really want people assigning mail that they're working on to the IMA inbox because you want it to be a true inbox where everything that's new that is coming in to the system is available. So there was a feature where you couldn't assign anything to you could set up using a setting in here where you could set it up that you weren't, no one was allowed to assign to the IMA inbox to do it. We've now opened up that so that you can allow certain people to assign to the IMA inbox. And one of the main ways that it would be used is we have something called opinions, where you can have the front desk person who's answering the phone put opinions into the system, which create mail records, and then they need to be assigned to someone to answer. Due to the fact that you couldn't assign, people couldn't assign to, say, the IMA mailbox, all those opinions that the person at the front desk was creating were staying with that person at the front desk because they didn't have the ability to assign it to the inbox, where the people who would handle it were actually going to see them. So they would have to go in, reassign them individually to the users that handle the issues or whatever. This way, it's just nice. You can set a user that can and say, have the front desk person to be able to reassign to that inbox to do it. And so it's just a nice feature. Again, some of these features that I've shown you take setup in the back end of the system, either in the system configurations that we've set up or an individual user's ID account to do certain security locks. The switch template and the revert to original email are things that are locked in the system, and certain users can be allowed to do it versus others to do it. So if you have questions about them or need assistance in setting them up, we're here and available to help you to do it. I'm done with my section, so I am now going to hand it off to William for his section of doing it. So we'll go from there. I'm going to stop sharing and hand it over to William. And William should now be the presenter and have the ability to show his part. William, you're muted, I believe.
Hello?
Yep, you're good now.
Oh, awesome. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you for confirming that. Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, depending on what part of the world you're calling in from. And again, as Peter stated, my name is William Pelkey. I'm going to be showing you guys a few different things regarding the home screen, use of preferences, some services, XML tags that we have, and some batching functionality, and also some contact information as well. So the very first thing we're going to take a look at here is dealing with the home tile for announcements. Announcements, as you guys know, are on your home tile, and they are actually used to broadcast messages to a specific group or independent users. So what I'm just going to do here is I'm going to stretch this out a little bit here so we can get some more real estate. And what we've done now, just as Peter had shown you guys, the ability now to add HTML content to the announcement section here. And doing so, I'm just going to move this up here just a little bit, go back. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an announcement with some different data elements in it. So underneath shortcuts is where you'll have your link for your announcements. I'm going to simply select Add Announcement. Here's where you can set your priority, the different status of that particular announcement, the owner, and the title. We're just going to call this one. And you'll notice here, as soon as I click inside that box, we'll get our normal, our new toolbar here that's going to be able to, where you'll be able to bold text, underline text, and it works just like you would in a Word document. Okay. You'll also see here, you can also insert links. And you'll notice that there. Okay. You can also have your IQ images, or you'll be able to edit that images, your bullet list, things like that. Down below, here's where you can specify specific users or groups. We're going to broadcast this to all users, and then I'm going to click the Save option here. And once I go back to the home screen, you'll notice that everything has been entered here. Okay? And I spelled that wrong, but that's okay. All right, so we'll move on to the next feature here on this My IQ screen. I'm just going to do a basic reset of my original layout that will actually put all the tiles back into their original format. We do have a new tile for your services. This new tile is named, it's called My Do Services. And this is dealing with any type of repeated process, whether you're tracking casework, whether you're tracking projects and grants, proclamations, any type of request. Generally, they will have a due date associated with them. And you'll notice here, we actually have added that tile called My Due Services. There's a case opened on 3/30 that's probably coming up due. You can also control the constraints for this particular tile as well, such as the height, the width, the background color, things like that. You also have a checkbox here to present the oldest one first, and then your max count. You can actually change that. What this will actually do is provide you all with a direct link or access to that particular case that is possibly due or coming up, and you can see that here. Okay. Awesome. Let's move on. So the next thing that we're going to be discussing is the use of preferences. This is something that, you know, a lot of folks tend to forget about, but what these preferences are used for are to default your user preferences, what you're specifying you'd like to see. Sometimes that could shorten up a process. One of the things that we now have is the ability to default outgoing email addresses. So under your name, underneath your login name here on the top right-hand corner, you'll notice that there's a link called Preferences. I'm going to go ahead and select that. Now, it is contextual, so basically what happens is whatever page you're on, and if you select those preferences, it will take you to that section, okay? Being that we're on the home screen, you'll see it opened up the general section here. We'll collapse this and we'll open up the messages portion of it. And what we've done here is we've actually added default incoming methods for standard messages and also for service-related messages, okay? But what I really want you to pay particular attention to is your default from email address. By default, there's probably going to be nothing selected there, okay? But I'm going to go ahead and choose my email address here as the default for regular standard mail, and I can also have a different one, you know, for service-related messages as well. Generally, you're going to keep this as the default, whatever IQ's email address is, because as you guys know, you want that back and forth conversation to remain inside the service, okay? So I'm going to change this default for standard messages to my email address. I'm basically going to do a search for that for a contact name. Okay, just going to go to Jody's record here. I'm going to select new form message. I'm going to change the outgoing method to email. And you'll notice the from email address is now pulling from my preferences. Okay. Now, just keep this in mind when you are authorized to send messages from IQ, that's going to be populated in the system admin section underneath the system settings page. And also keep in mind that anything that you send from IQ with your email address or a different account, any replies will go to that box. Okay, so just keep that in mind when you are changing your default methods. Okay. Also in preferences, I'm just going to click on home for quick. Also in messages, what we've done to speed things up here a little bit is underneath the messages, as you guys know, when you go to all open messages, it's looking for anything regardless of who it's assigned to. Now, basically in our demo account, this is pretty much our sandbox or our playground area here. We don't have a lot of messages in here, and you can actually see, it's taking a little bit of time for it to pull up that display. Now, you guys, on the other hand, depending on your market area, you probably have anywhere between 5,000 and possibly 100,000 open messages at any given time. Okay? If you'll notice here, this is what we call as a list result page, okay? And if you notice on the far right-hand side, you're going to have an activity section. Basically, it's showing you the different activities, any open messages, or any recent services that are dealing with this particular constituent. This is called the activity section, okay? Now, what we've done to speed this up is we've actually added a preference, again, located in the top right corner underneath your name, and selecting that link preferences. I'm going to scroll down, and you're going to actually see where it says display rule for recent activity in the message grid. It's going to default to automatically show activity. But when I select the other option where it says recent activity only on user request, I'm going to select save on this. I'm simply going to refresh this page here. You'll notice how fast that was. A lot faster than when we had that activity section. And you'll notice now that all the activity, whether it's open service, open messages, recently closed, all that information is now on user demand. And what that means is, if you'll notice here, this is called a submenu, okay, or a row action for that particular record. You'll notice there's a new link here called recent activity, okay? And when you select that, you get a pop-up box that will actually display that they have 4 open messages, non-completed, any outreach they may be tied to, and any open and closed services here. So again, changing that preference to display upon user request is definitely going to speed things up for you. Okay, and you'll see that there. Great. Let's move on to this next thing dealing with the services XML tag. And I'm probably speaking another language with some of you guys, but some of you may know what an XML tag is used for. When we initially set up incoming emails and things like that, we either work with your web provider, your web vendor, and supply them with what we call our XML tags. These XML tags are used to propagate data into the appropriate places in IQ. And what I mean by that is, if it's a first and last name field, IQ parses that out using the XML tags, so it goes into the contact records first and last name fields, and so forth with email address, street address, city, state, zip, and things like that. But what we've also added, especially for services, is we have a new XML tag I'm going to go into my open services, and I sent one in last week sometime that utilizes this XML tag. In this case, you'll see here the description. It says this new tag will allow the description field to be populated with up to 4,000 characters, which is going to save an abundance of amount of time. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to show you the raw data for that particular email. Let's see here. So this is what I was referring to earlier. This particular web form actually is going to kick off a service, a casework, anything like that, anything that's a repeatable process. That's the template ID. But these are the XML tags that IQ uses to send that information once it receives it, how it parses it out into the appropriate sections. You'll notice here that this is the new tag here, okay? The description. You'll see that it's opened here and then it's closed here. It's going to be a time saver, especially when you can actually display that information, get a quick synopsis on what's going on with that particular request right from your list view. And most likely you'll have to work with the consultant or somebody from Leidos if you want to utilize that XML tag to capture a description of that request. Feel free to reach out and we can work with you on implementing that new tag there. Okay. Great. The next thing that we're going to talk about here is I'm going to go back to the all open. And we actually have a new email viewed filter. I'll go ahead and select Set Up Filters. It's used by clicking on that gear on the far right-hand side. You'll also notice, use your filter up at the top because, again, these can get quite lengthy as far as what you're able to filter on. So I'm just going to type in the word email, and you'll notice here that you'll get a host of different filters. As inactive email, which is a good one there, just in case if you're doing a mass targeted mailing. You'll notice that there's the email viewed, email is not viewed, and the email and is viewed email, actual field name, okay? So to add these, simply would select one, define your sort order, and then you can also move them up and down. Notice how I clicked the down arrow and I made that the top one. You can still also change the label if need be, okay? And we've added our new filter there. Once you've added that filter as well, once you select the Analyze feature, as you guys know, you'll be able to group it by any one of those filters as well. Okay? Great. Moving on to the next thing, still dealing with messages. I'm sure that the majority of you are using what we are calling batches to categorize or compartmentalize your messages, your outgoing U.S. postal mail, whether it's going to be printed mail. I'm going to simply select all active batches from here. What we've done here is, because folks generally will forget, how many, what they have in their batch, or they'll forget to, once a batch is everything printed out of it, what IQ does, it will actually archive or the batch when all messages are completed. And you'll notice here we've got 2 completed here, 4 completed, emails, postal mail. We've got a few 0 open here. You know, 1 in there, 1 and 1 closed. You'll notice here in my batch, I'm going to go in here, and you'll notice we've got a few of them that are closed and a few that are open, okay? And a few that are open. What we've added here, which is new, is the removal option. This removal option says remove when emptied, and then it says do not remove when emptied. If I were to print all these or send them out by email, again, IQ will auto-archive or get rid of this particular batch. When I select this do not remove when emptied, I'm simply going to manually change the status of these. I'm going to use the change status option. I'm just going to complete them. Notice 0 open, but my batch is still entirely open, which is the ultimate goal there, is to leave that batch particularly open. Okay. The next thing that we're going to take a look at is a contact. A lot of times what we have, if you guys are allowing raw mail or what we call is formatted mail, sometimes people either, you know, punch in a wrong zip code or they fat finger the address or whatever the case may be. And what happens is they get diverted outside of the system into an electronic holding tank, basically, called an exception set. Okay? You'll notice here that I've got a few records in here that are actually a part of a set, right? And there are messages associated with this. Okay? Now, again, once things are inside this set, you will not be able to see the ID until this information is posted. Now, what you will see are people that are inside this set. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do a search. And we actually have got a lot more information regarding the individual themselves. You'll notice here on this second record here that I am a part of the exception set. This will actually provide you with a direct link to that exception set. There's also one in the non-deliverable set, meaning a bounce back has occurred. Okay? But what I really like about this is the fact that if I do go inside the constituent record here, down at the bottom here, it now has set information. Again, it's showing me that I'm in the exception set, and there are also 2 pieces of mail, okay, that are still inside that set. Okay. Awesome. That's really useful when in ensuring that you're replying to the most recent message. If you're on the contact record and you're sending out a response, or make sure that you do have the latest message there. Okay. Awesome. Now, we've also want to show you this other feature when dealing with contact records here. I'm just going to look up. You'll notice here, it's got a record, a couple of records in here that don't have a contact name associated with them. What was happening was that the message information was not displaying. But you'll notice now that that message, regardless of if there's a person attached to it or not, you'll notice that it now will show you, or you can now have a contact record with just a business address. This is really good for, all those congressional liaisons, and that's what they're called. They're congressional liaisons when you're working with a individual at the state or federal level. You're working with pretty much a liaison there. So now that those messages will actually show. Okay. Awesome. And the last thing that I wanted to show you guys is the ability now to, we actually have implemented a few more output types for your reporting purposes. I'm just going to go here and show you the one report, not just has the output, but we now have HTML output pretty much across the board now when you are sending, when you're reporting on messages. I'll just look at this first one here. And the output format has been added for HTML. Just another enhancement for IQ. If you wanted to send out this link in an email or what have you, you can now do that. Okay. Well, that is all that I had for you as far as my part is concerned. Thanks for taking the time. And again, if you guys have any questions, make sure that you put them in that chat box off on the side there. And I'll be more than happy to answer. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Stay safe and have a great week. Looks like we do have a question in the chat. How do you get to IQ3 other than shortcuts, since IQ3 isn't appearing on shortcuts?
If you're in a rev, and I'm not sure exactly which rev it was, but we can find out, you can't get back to IQ3. It's been removed as an option because it's been sunset to do it. So the only option is the IQ4. So if you don't have it in the shortcuts, it isn't available to the average user. There is a background way we can set it up. So if you would like to contact us, we can discuss that.
Absolutely.
There's one more question. Will we be sending out a synopsis? We will be posting this video online, but not like a shortened synopsis, but you can review this video at any time.